Good day, everyone. Welcome back to our video lecture. And in today's video lecture, I will be talking about lesson 3 of Unit 5. So let's not waste our time. Allow me to share the screen for us to view the PowerPoint presentation. And here it is. Okay, so lesson 3 of Unit 5 is using spreadsheets in language learning and using spreadsheets to enhance teaching and learning. So let's put it into presentation mode. And we all know what electronic spreadsheet is. And basically, this is what we usually use if we compute students' grades. It makes our computation easier. But in this context, we will talk about electronic spreadsheet in the context of language learning. So an electronic spreadsheet is analogous to an accountant's ledger sheet. In our case, as teachers, it could also help us. It could help enhance our teaching. And it contains rows and columns for entering character or numeric data. And rows are actually arranged. We know the horizontal ones, they are called the rows, while the columns are the ones arranged vertically. So the intersection, the rectangle, we call it the cell. And a collection of cells is known as a range. So we're just trying to take a look at the different terminologies or the parts of an electronic spreadsheet. And we have here, so you guys would be able to see what am I talking about. So this one here, this is the rows, the one and the four. You notice there are arrows. So we do have here the columns, okay, the vertical ones, and the cell. Here is the cell, and the range, okay, the one that you selected. Okay, the cells that you selected, it is the range. This is the part of a spreadsheet, very common. And also we do have, of course, the features of a Microsoft Excel that we can use. When we say spreadsheets, they are calculating tools that we can apply in various purposes to numerical applications. If we do have problems of description and then problems involving relationships, we can do a lot in a spreadsheet. And problems involving analysis, if it involves large volumes of data, because the Excel or the spreadsheet can basically navigate or manipulate those easily. You can save and compile as well. And statistical applications. For example, you're conducting research study in a quantitative research, you make use of a spreadsheet. And for Google, we have Google Sheets. Earlier, I was sharing about Google Slides. So we also have a counterpart of a Microsoft Excel to Google, and that is Google Sheets. So spreadsheets can be used across the curriculum in education. Actually, it's not just only confined to only one or two areas, like when we say mathematics or science, but even in language teaching. So spreadsheet software in teaching and learning. The spreadsheet, we call it the worksheets. And in Excel class, many worksheets can exist within the same workbook. So for example, in one workbook, so it has different sheets, right? Like when we compute your grades, it's going to be one workbook, and then all the sections will be on different sheets. And I believe you know that. An integrated software package, it includes a spreadsheet application used to help students manipulate data, form conclusions, analyze or express relationships, document findings, and prepare material for distribution. And teachers use spreadsheet most commonly for grade computation, as what I told you. We develop instructional materials and when we plan a lesson. And what are the advantages of spreadsheets? Calculations and comparisons, it's easier for us to calculate and compare data. And modeling, or what if analysis, range estimation, projection, because in Excel, we can make use of different charts, even functions, and automatic recalculation. So that's why it's very convenient for us teachers when we compute grades. Gone were the days when you bring calculator and do the manual computation. The Excel would do it for you. It saves your time. It allows you to create charts and solve problems. So many things we can do in spreadsheet. And then decision making as well. For example, you are dealing with graphs, and of course with some figures, and you could fill some options and some macros and the real world applicability. Well, in the context of us as teachers, we may basically use Excel for teaching in the context of English language teaching in a lot of ways. And at the same time, when we do our research study and when we have some computations, and of course, grades, of course, when we compute students' grades. What are the disadvantages of spreadsheets? So it needs specialized software and hardware, and you need to plan and practice using it. Development of meaningful and useful applications. It would take also energy and effort. And sometimes that the data can also be incorrect. So you also need to check on its accuracy. So complexity surrounding formulas and their arguments. And lack of detail in error messages often cause users frustration and waste time. And aspects of the spreadsheet can be applied incorrectly due to, for example, when your assumption is incorrect, or if you have some missing or inaccurate data and you thought that mauna to siya, pero sayop di ay. So you really have to know that what you are doing is the right thing, so you won't probably commit errors or mistakes. And these are just some of the disadvantages. But the disadvantages can actually be avoided if you know what you are doing and the data that you are inputting or the data that you are manipulating. So the advantages and disadvantages of spreadsheets. Here are the advantages. Free to use. The disadvantage counterpart is that it's vulnerable to fraud, which is true. It's easy to use, but it could also be there are more chances of error. But the thing is, if you know what you are doing and you just reviewed also the data that you manipulate there, then you could basically avoid that. And then easy to track payments and difficult to share internally. Now you just have to save it anyway, and then you can share it in so many ways. Business plan, difficult for data visualization and accounting, and of course security risk, formatting, okay, and then integration, difficult to scale. So basically there are disadvantages, but we have to use Excel class because the advantages also outweigh the disadvantages. And as teachers, I tell you, it's very easy to compute as long as you have already the scores of your learners. It's so much easier for you to compute and at the same time, just generate the students' grades. And then use of spreadsheets. This time, we'll talk about how to use it for language learning. So the use of spreadsheets for language learning and interdisciplinary projects has many benefits for both teachers and at the same time, those who are handling teachers who are handling the language classes, those who are handling informatics and computer science. And there is also the aspect of motivation, which is very essential to learn and the process. And when we use spreadsheet, the motivation is higher. Now the students are interested in the learning contents and or enjoy the exercises. For example, if you use games using Excel, okay, and then learning contents and exercises relating to the personal world of the students. And these are some of the use of spreadsheet when they recognize, for example, the purpose and the benefit of the topics and the different knowledge, the competencies, and the products that they can use in their real life. You can make use of spreadsheet as well for some interdisciplinary tasks and projects. And for example, of a specific activity where you use Excel, example, working with vocabulary list. So you let the students list all the vocabulary. But if you notice, it's the English, and you also list the counterpart of it in Spanish. Basically, your target language here is English, and then Scaffolding, right? Making use of the native language. So B. So here in this activity, the teacher is allowing the students to use spreadsheet. Now, tandem exercise family. This is another activity. So this is still under the vocabulary of family. And then this is what the students are doing. Student one, family, and this is counterpart in, or what is it that under family? Okay, under or opposite, basically mother, el padre, father, right? So yes, you're using here Excel for vocabulary exercise. We call this a tandem exercise family. So what is its counterpart? Now, board games and playing cards. So for example, ordered food, you're going to make use of Excel to just provide information, which we could see the kind of image. So if you are going to do something like this, you could use Excel to produce this. And then sextet present tense. Okay, so magkuhan kang mga tenses of the verb. Okay, you can do this activity. Okay, and then quiz card. So if you create a quiz card, you can make use of spreadsheet as well. And you can generate something like this. Of course, if you are using PowerPoint presentation, you have the intention to print, then you can just copy and paste in your presentation. And then playing cards, so game board for quizzes. You can generate this kind of playing cards in Excel actually. Kind of mga crossword puzzle, so you can do it, you can generate or you can do it. You can use the Excel to do that. Ipang block ko lang nimo, tagaan lang nimo color. Okay, and then you can copy and paste. And yes, you can let the students use it. So student also has misconceptions using spreadsheets. Okay, sometimes, for example, understanding rounding versus formatting. And then when they create formulas and when they supply arguments, and then when they omit parentheses. So these are some of the student misconceptions. And these misconceptions, class, should be corrected, no? And that's why we have here, the students should understand what is rounding and what is formatting. So the rounding changes the value in memory. Okay, while when we say formatting, it's merely you change the appearance of the value. So when you round it off to its greatest value or to its least or to its least, but when you say formatting, it's just as is. And then you create formulas and supplying arguments. So you have to be very specific. You provide at least 3 examples of commonly used functions and their associated parameters, and use the system's help facility as needed. When you become a DepEd teacher, I believe they already have everything. If we talk about computing grades, everything is already there in terms of the formula. So I've heard, or as what I've learned, you just have to input the scores. And then you omit parentheses, no? Because sometimes if you have the parentheses, it may even can create a function, and then follow the rule insisting that an even number of parentheses always use. So conversions between text and numeric data, and placing data on one page, and when you print formulas. So conversions between text and numeric data, you have to apply the appropriate functions and distinguish between those used for text and the numeric data. So you provide examples and show consequences of using inappropriate values. The reason why we tend to have a mistake in our spreadsheet is because when we definitely input wrong data, and there could be also, it would boomerang, or it would have a placebo effect to its interpretation. So you have to make sure you are inputting the right data and you review it. And then we have placing data on one page, and then alter fonts, font sizes, margins, and column or row designations. You also need to print formulas, and you have to review formatting and tool options, and you provide examples. And so we have another misconception, absolute versus the relative referencing, creating lookup tables, so plotting non-consecutive series of data. Well, basically in this case, it's not gonna be like usually we use it as teachers, we basically mainly use spreadsheet to compute grades. But if we use it in the context of language teaching and learning, is that earlier I was giving you guys a specific example activities, no? Nga gamitan ninyo og spreadsheet. For example, the crossword puzzle, when you let the students do some board games or even listing them vocabulary, those are just some. Kani siya, basically, kung you are going to make use of the graphs, okay, using the spreadsheet, which mga reports perhaps, okay, and then you have to make sure that you have to show examples of instances where data is copied or moved, okay, because when you copy or move the data, pwede man good nga you are copying it and then i-cut na sa nimo ang entire column. So it's different. You just have to explore on the options and then you have to break this. Okay, so you have to also explain the table, the position, the referencing, and when you replicate the formula. And for example, if you use Excel class, ano naman tayo gitawag po doon? Kanang kuan. How do I call this? I forgot. Formula, like the function. Now, for example, if you want to get the sum or the product, or the average or the quotient, so nasa na siya. But you could really input also. And then we have plotting non-consecutive series of data. Show students how this is done and indicate where they should enter the ranges of different series. Now, we still have so many misconceptions using spreadsheets. When we create a formula, so understanding the difference between a formula and a function. So formula, there are, like, for example, formula equals 2 plus 5, ana. For the function, na tayo mga built-in function. Katong mga built-in function, for example, i-click na lang ni mo diretso nga you are looking for the sum or you are looking for the product. It depends on what you are looking. Okay, and then you have to create the formula. Make sure students know what symbol is needed to begin to create a formula. Later on, we will visit a specific Excel. Understanding the difference between a formula and a function and explain to students that a function is a pre-programmed set of instructions invoked by name to perform a given task. Okay, kung function, pre-programmed na ni Excel. But when we say formula, a user-derived set of operations used in computation. And somehow, when you say formula, the user is the one manipulating it. Dili na siya pre-program. Yung siyang i-input. Okay? Teaching and learning activities for spreadsheets. So you use it for demonstrations and student products, when you let the students solve problem activities on storing and when they analyze data, when they project grades for your learning objectives, spreadsheet application, when you do calculations such as multiplication, subtraction, division, addition, and sum, no? Calculate temperature as well. So there's just a lot, okay, when you do graph, chart, interpretation, analysis. So daghan siya matrabaho sa Excel. But as a teacher, ato lang i-check kung sa tayo mga common na buhaton niyo in the future. So this is it for the spreadsheet. But before that, let me stop sharing first, and then I will bring you, or I will give you Excel, no? And then I will let you know how to use VLOOKUP, because the VLOOKUP, it's what we are using. Okay, so for example, let me share my screen. Okay, when we say, okay, Excel book 2. Okay, so now you are seeing a blank. Okay, so the entire thing, class, this is a workbook. So I will click here, I will create a blank workbook. So for example, I'm a teacher. For example, this is for BS Ed 2A. Okay, so I will click that. So this is sheet for BS Ed 2A. This is a sheet for the BS Ed 2B. Okay, so kung mag-compute na to grades, in our case, for example, ang perfect score nato is, for example, quiz. And then we have a perfect score of 50. So this is the perfect score. And then ang score ni student 1 is 48, student 2 is 49, and then 50, and then 30, and then 42. So what ang nato anak? Sorry. Okay, here 42. So imagine these are your students. So perhaps you can put it in a center, and then let's just have it in bold. Now, as teacher, we have to look for the equivalent. Kaya dili man pwede nga ang figure nga mugawas is actually the same with 50, no? Naman ta equivalent ana, like unsa may equivalent ana niyang rating in terms of our grading system sa university is of course 1.2, 1.1 ana. So I will open first the downloads, documents. And then we have here 60% pa ng atong passing. So I will open this transmutation table. So this transmutation table, I remembered a former colleague, Ma'am Alerta, created this, no? Kay gikuha man ni namo sa gipanghatag ni CN sa university nga hard copy. Yan mo ni mga equivalent. So kung ang imong score, ang perfect score niya is 100 points. So kung ang bata makaka 0 points, so ang yang equivalent is 5.0. Kung 1, mo na 5.0 bihapon. So kung ma-perfect siya, of course, mo na 1.0 equivalent. So we are getting that, and we don't make it our own, ha? We are given this transmutation table, and then ang ato ang passing score here is 60% because that is what is required by the university. So in case, here, in our case, mao man ni ang kuan ang score sa mga student, and our perfect score here is 50. So atong tan-aw ang iyahang equivalent. So what we will do usually is we are going to use this VLOOKUP. The VLOOKUP would allow you to look at the equivalent of per a certain column, the equivalent value. So VLOOKUP kani siya nga first one ako ni i-drag here. And then, I will look for the table array kung asa na ko siya pahitan. Array po sa 60%. Lain siya nga workbook, ha? So, there man ang total number of points na ako. No, 50 man. So, ako ning i-run. So, ato na siya sa... Okay, and then, 2. Kay ang akong ipa-input, ang katong second nga kuan, and then true. Okay? Ngano man ang second, kay... O kung ang first mo imong ipa-input, 2 dapat ay butang kay ba? First kani mo imong gawas kaning score ni ang atong kuhaon ng equivalent man, which is in the second column sa imong drag and drop. Okay, so okay. So now nanay equivalent. So kung nakakuha siya og 42 di ay ang equivalent ana using the transmutation table provided, that is 1.8. Now what if ang kanina quiz nakabutang sa grading system na teacher is young quizzes that is 20%. So to get the corresponding portion na nakuha sa student is of course we will have the product, diba? Product. Okay, and then here you click this and then comma, and then i-input na lang in decimal, and 20% in decimal 0.2. So okay, then drag and drop. Okay, so kung nakakuha ka og 50, which is 1.0, expected ng imong equivalent sa iyang grado is 0.2. Now, out of 100, so na kay 20%. So ang 80%, asa pa mo na natukaon? Mo na klase nga 33% ana gikuha sa inyong major exam. Kay in our university, we have 33% for your major exam, while the 67% of your class standing. The class standing could be comprised of quizzes, projects, or anything other than the major exam. Mga attendance, if you have any recitation, participation points, and a lot more. Tanan diha under gina sa class standing. And for the class standing, si teacher na po yung magbutan na kung pilay allocate niya sa attendance. Of course, ang attendance, expected sa class nga mubo sa the percentage. Kay, dahil sa kaysa nagka 67%, your attendance would be 50%. Naasa naman yung utang quizzes and other components, right? Now, this is for the purpose of trying to compute the grades. Now, what if in the context, in the context of English language teaching, ganina, ang one is, for example, maghimo ka og you're going to create a crossword puzzle. Asayin na siya. So, kani siya, himo na kayo ng i-block. Okay. Ngayon, ari for example, kaning nga word. Okay, unsa man ni siya nga word? Yeah, then i-block na pud nimo ni dere. Here, i-block nimo. Or here. Yeah, you let the student na yun create na word, for example, summer ang word. So, student. In case you are going to have a mga aning activity sa imuhang quizzes, so you can easily do that or create something like that here in a crossword puzzle. And then format cells na ka for the border. Create. Okay, so okay, so see here, usama. Yan, lain na pod. Okay. Or basta, imo ra nang i-block-block yun para maka-create ka of puzzle or whatever you desire. And then for the vocabulary list, it's also easy. Just have it. And then you can save your work and you can use it. Now, for example, you want to insert something like chart. Okay, possible po na okay, shapes or smart art. Okay, here for example, na mga graphic organizers, arira sa smart art. Pero if you are going to go charts like pie graph, okay, sorry, mga pie graph, so lahi na sad na siya class. So here na, okay, column or bar chart, so you can also, then you can input na, but basically ato na siyang kung ano. If na kay mga pa-exam, okay, so this is just how you can make use of the spreadsheets. Yeah. If you want to use the Google thing, of course, in Google, it is called Google Sheets. But Microsoft, we have Microsoft Excel or the spreadsheet. I'm going to save it. Okay, so stop. So this is it for lesson 3, making use of spreadsheet to enhance language learning. So it's really up to you, no? Sometimes we don't use that, but oftentimes we use the Excel to compute really the grade. So if it will be with that ed, of course, they have their own formula, they have their own way, and it's easier. So I hope you learned too from this lecture. I will see you on the next one. We have 2 more lessons. Bye, everyone.